I wanted to do a video on toxic friendships or toxic relationships because I look at my life now and I feel really grateful and lucky to have the people in my life that I have. Everyone that I'm close with, that I spend regular time with, is incredibly kind, conscious, celebratory of me and our relationship, super supportive. They're all people that I know that if I needed something within reason, they would drop what they were doing and come and support me. And it hasn't always been like that. I think about when I was much younger, in my younger years, and I really struggled with building friendships and building relationships, healthy relationships with people. Because I think when I was much younger, I had a very low self-esteem. I didn't really think much of myself and my worth and value as a person. And so my criteria for making friends, my criteria for spending time with people was literally like, will you spend time with me? You're hired. That's it. You're in. So what ended up happening was I kind of found myself in groups and friendships with people who were not kind. They were just sort of mean, toxic, not people, but just the relationships were not supportive because I didn't know any better. I think part of it was because of my low self-esteem. It was almost this internal conversation with myself around like, oh, this is what I deserve. Like, it doesn't get better than this. Like, this is the level of quality and intimacy and connection that I can create with people, even though the majority of the time I didn't like hanging out with the people that I was spending time with, like later elementary school, middle school, high school. Didn't feel good in a lot of the relationships that I was in, but I didn't know any better. And I find that that's where a lot of people get stuck. Just generally, a lot of people get stuck is because we don't understand what else is possible. If you've only known one thing forever and you don't know anything else, obviously you're just going to continue to do that one thing because that's all you know. And I think it's the same thing with relationships. And so it wasn't until I got to college, and especially after I graduated college and started working in corporate, going through those big changes, like moving to San Francisco and then moving to Chicago, getting involved in different things, that I started to meet people that were much more on my wavelength, where I could build these much more intimate and supportive and energetically beneficial, healthy relationships with people. And it's been a journey for sure. Like, it was not an overnight change. It was this slow, gradual process of starting to release and remove the more toxic and less healthy relationships from my life, which can be really hard, especially if you have like a shared history with someone and they are really invested in the relationship that you both have. It can be very difficult to start to distance yourself and separate yourself. And so it was pruning those relationships and then also starting to develop and cultivate better, healthier relationships. And so I think this conversation is just so important because, I mean, in so many ways, the relationships that you have in your life, the connections that you have is what determines the quality of your life. It's that whole saying of, if you hang out with 5 overweight people or 5 people who are addicted to drugs, you'll be the 6th. Same thing with if you hang out with 5 people who are all millionaires and incredibly healthy, like, you'll be the 6th. The people that you surround yourself with have an incredible influence and impact on you and on your sense of self and how you feel about yourself. And so starting to more intentionally cultivate your circle is incredibly important. And so, I think a couple of the things to look out for with toxic relationships and toxic friends, definitely look at the quality and the nature of your interactions with people. If you feel like you need to censor or portray or try to come across a certain way when you're interacting with or in relationship with people, there's a good chance if you look at what's underneath that, there's a fear of judgment, and which means there's a wall. There's some sort of wall. There's a lack of intimacy. There's a lack of vulnerability, which could be for a variety of reasons. But in my case, I found that it was because I was afraid of being judged by the people that I was in relationship with, by my friends. And so I would portray myself and perform and censor myself in a certain way, because I was afraid of what they would say or what they were going to, how they were going to react when I shared something. You could also look at how do people react to and relate to your wins. So if you have something really cool that happens, do you, and you share it with this person, do they celebrate you? Is it like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. That is amazing. Of course you did that. Of course it worked out that way for you. Like, that's incredible. Like, tell me more about that. Tell me more about, etc. It's celebratory. They're acknowledging you. They're curious. They're interested. They're excited about your wins. Or they're dismissive. It doesn't really feel like they see you or they acknowledge how important that thing was for you. That's usually a pretty good sign that it might be a more toxic relationship or an opportunity to create a stronger relationship. You might also look at the content of what you talk about. I look at the conversations that I had versus the conversations that I have now. And before, it wasn't really anything of substance. It wasn't really anything of, well, what am I learning about myself? And what are you learning about yourself? And where are you going? And how are we doing this thing together? Growth, like these growth-oriented conversations. It was like just stale and stagnant. We were talking about what we would do on the weekends or our history or our past or nothing really of significance. So those are usually pretty good ways to spot those less healthy relationships. And I think then the opportunity is, how do you start to step away from those people? I think part of it is making plans less frequently with those people. So over time, you're just not strengthening the relationship. And when you're not actively building a relationship, the relationship is dying. Or alternatively, if you want to practice something that's a little bit more confronting, but also a really cool opportunity, is just very directly addressing the nature of that relationship with that person and basically sharing with them your experience of the relationship to that point in time and how you'd like it to go different. A lot of people are afraid to do that because it's vulnerable, right? It's a vulnerable thing. And even as a side note, even more broadly, when we're talking about why it can be really difficult to let these friends go and create new friends, you think about how important it is for us to belong, to feel like we're connected. And even though we might really want it to be different inside of our relationships, if we feel that our sense of belonging is being put at risk, we are much less likely to take that action or do that thing because our sense of belonging is so important to us. And so a big piece of this is understanding that there's going to be a short amount of discomfort in breaking up the relationship or creating a new version of that relationship, but it's incredibly important to get to the other side where you can be a more authentic version of yourself and build these healthier relationships. And then in terms of creating new relationships, I think part of it is understanding, like, what are you actually looking for in these relationships? What are you looking for in these friendships? Literally write it down. Literally write down what you are looking for in friends, in the people that you spend your time with, the qualities. For me, kindness is everything. Like everything. I can get along with a lot of different kinds of people, but if you're fundamentally being unkind in our interactions or in our relationship, I have zero space for that. Absolutely no space for that. So that's an important one, kindness. You might also look at like shared interests, a commitment to growth. I always love connecting with people who want to learn more about themselves and who want to build lives that are really cool and interesting and unique, because it gives us something really cool to talk about and we can relate on that level. So part of it is understanding, okay, what are you looking for in friends? And then starting to put yourself in opportunities and in circumstances to meet more people, which can be confronting in the beginning and can be a little bit scary but is really easy when you get used to it. I think one of the best strategies is literally just pretending like you're already everybody's friend. Everyone appreciates this. I've realized this more and more recently. Everyone appreciates when you just act as if you're already friends. Like that's even when I'm making these videos, I'm thinking about like, I'm just going to pretend like the person watching this, you right now, you're just my friend. We're just homies and we're just having this conversation. Because it breaks down the barriers. It breaks down the formalities and the small talk and people feeling like, oh, I have to show up a certain way. So I just pretend like I'm already friends with everybody. And I find it just helps people drop their guards and their defenses much more quickly. And then we can relate and actually connect in that way. And what you'll start to find is as you do that more often, it gets easier. So part of it is where are the spaces or the groups or the opportunities to go in and meet those kinds of people who have shared interests or who are the kinds of people that you want to meet. Or literally, how can you reach out to people individually and just like become friends with them? Because everyone's always looking for friends. Everyone's always looking for good friends. Everyone's always looking for good friends. So if you relate to yourself in that way, if you relate to yourself as a good friend, who wouldn't want to meet you? Who wouldn't want to spend time with you? So, one thing that I'll do occasionally is literally just like, I'll find people online, on LinkedIn, on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and I'll just reach out and I'll just start a conversation. I'll just like start picking their brain, having a conversation with them, pretending like we're already friends. And I've created some really good friends that way. Because all the things that get in the way of like, oh, well, who am I to reach out to this person, or they're probably busy, or, they're impressive, if we're putting them up on a pedestal or whatever, it's all just nonsense. It's all story. It's all, none of that's real. And being able to cut through that directly and just be genuine with people and just want to be connected to people is incredibly powerful and worth it. Because on the other side of it is a sense of community that is very uplifting, very empowering, very supportive. And I think when you're trying to do big things in the world and you're really working on yourself, you'll have a lot of experiences where you get really confronted and where things are difficult. And having a community, having a group of people that you can lean on when you forget who you are and when you forget like how great things are and what you're creating and how excited you are about what you're creating. When you forget that, which happens all the time, happens to me all the time, you can reach out to people and be like, hey, can you remind me of like what I'm working on and how great I am and how great we are and how, how much is possible everywhere. So if you find yourself in that situation right now where you've got toxic people in your life, I 100% feel you. I totally get it. I get the pain. And the great part about it, and the thing that I really want to say to you, is that it can go so different. It can be so different. It's scary at the outset, letting go of your circle, but you have to make space for that new experience. You have to make space for that new circle, that new friend, that new relationship. So hopefully this gave you some ideas around if you've got less than healthy people in your life, some things that you can do about it, start to do about it. Normalizing like where you're at right now, and also starting to think about like how you can reach out to people and build new relationships, like build new friendships and build new connections. So would love to hear from you. What are you taking from what I shared? What resonated with you? Any ahas, any realizations? Drop it in the comments. Let me know. Especially if this resonated with you and you want to hear more about anything that I talked about today, let me know in the comments. And other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your week. See you later.